Welcome to WiST Presents How I Got into Sports Tech. So I'm Dawn and I'm your host for today. I'm a volunteer with WiST, and I'm very excited for you guys to come and join us alongside Dr. Tommy Shavers and Christina VandenBerg for us to discuss all things related to mental health and performance. So this is currently a trending topic, and I think it's really important for us to address it and get your expertise and your point of view on how we can improve and your thoughts on the matter. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with WiST, Women in Sports Tech is a nonprofit created to drive growth opportunities for women at all stages of their careers throughout the sports tech and innovation landscape. And throughout our community, we are uniting men and women to create a more successful and equitable industry. So today's webinar was created to provide a platform for discovery and discussion. And we have our two guests today, Dr. Tommy Shavers and Christina VandenBerg. So Dr. Shavers is the founder and CEO of Nestre Health and Performance, a neurostrength company focused on increasing brain health, mental wellness, and human performance. He was a 3-year letter winner and football team captain at the University of Central Florida, where he also served as the athletic program's first life skills coordinator. He's a former college professor and has been a radio show host, TV guest expert. Dr. Shavers also has published works in the areas of social status, power, and athlete behavior. So welcome, Tommy. Do you mind if I call you Tommy? Sounds a bit more, personal. And Christina's also a former college athlete who's passionate about using her background in tech to improve the health and well-being of student athletes. And so her passion was rooted in her own experience as a high school athlete, as a D1 soccer player at Harvard. So beauty, brains, and sporting ability. Impressive. So from battling injuries and losing streaks, Christina went on to lead her team in goals and was named Harvard's Breakout Female Athlete of the Year. Very impressive. And she helped the team win back-to-back Ivy League titles. So welcome, both of you. We're so honored and excited to have you here to join us on our conversation. To kickstart, perhaps, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your career path and how it led you to the role that you're in now. Christina?
Sure. Happy to go first. Thank you so much for that intro, and thank you to WiST for hosting this conversation and inviting me on. It's a topic near and dear to me, and it has been extremely exciting to see the growth and recognition around mental health in sports, and to be in a position to be working on tackling this need. So in terms of just how I got into this space, it has been it's been a journey, but almost a calling. I started, I could almost go all the way back to when I was age 5 and joined a soccer team, and my parents threw me into Little League, but I won't go that far back. But I was a soccer player. That was my sport. It was my identity for so long in growing up. And so, but what really loved about sports were always the lessons that it taught you and the people that you got to meet through it and how it made you a better person on and off the field. And I carried that with me in playing college soccer, and had the privilege to play soccer at Harvard, and knew I was going to hang up my cleats afterwards, and went into the big bad world of business to really get my feet wet and learn those business fundamentals. And I really enjoyed it. I loved being able to apply that side of my brain as well. And when I went back to get my MBA, I was doing my MBA at Stanford. That's really where I got exposed to this world of digital health and using technology to make a social impact. And I got very excited about bringing my passion for sports and what that can do for young people and their development, bringing this background and seeing the power that technology could play in helping remove barriers to access and provide make sports really that platform for learning life skills, bringing those two worlds together. And that led me into this world of sports tech, and really have seen the growth of that. I really started my career in sports tech at TeamSnap, which is possibly an organization that some of your members know about, and very grateful to that company and its founder, Dave DuPont, for really showing me that I could have a career in sports tech, and specifically youth sports tech. And have been committed ever since to really carving out a career there and have loved just being able to be in sports, but really serving younger athletes. So that's a short version, but I can go into more detail later on.
Awesome. That's really impressive and so inspiring. And Tommy, how about you? Tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, I think that was awesome, and I'm also thankful to be able to join you all here. This has been outstanding, Don. Appreciate you having me having me as well. Important conversation, as Christina shared earlier. You know, as Christina alluded earlier, my backdrop kind of gives it away. I'm the other football guy, and grew up, playing football as a kid. Played college football here in Orlando at UCF, and suffered several concussive head injuries. In fact, I had about 7 or so within a 3-week time frame that ended my playing career and ability to move forward.
Wow.
And from that, I went on to experience mental and cognitive impairment and decline. If you've seen or heard about the movie Concussions, I essentially lived that in real life, and was told by my doctor for 20 years that my wife and I were essentially told to get our affairs in order, for her to get prepared to take care of me in these coming years, because the science says it doesn't get any better, it continues to get progressively worse. We just had our first child probably a few years before. And so if you can imagine getting, a statement like that to you in that moment, was crushing. And I just remember going home and just making the decision that I just refused to just kind of lay down, and wither away, if you will. And I refused to accept that narrative. And so I just made a decision that if it's never been done before, I'll be the first. And so, I went from there to create a self-model for recovery. Started with the premise: if the brain can be injured, then it serves the reason it functions like a muscle.
Right.
And if it functions like a muscle, it serves the reason it can be rehabbed. And I went to create my own cognitive conversion model, self-recovered after several years of creating that model. Had an opportunity to share that at Harvard at their Global Health Catalyst Summit, and share about my story, my model, but also my vision of changing this fatalistic narrative that people can't get better. And got connected with some of the top neuroscientists, individuals in the space. And it really kind of became the season and catalyst for Nestre. And one of the aha moments was really looking at the science of neuroplasticity and saying, we've really yet to reimagine the world through that lens. And what could we do if we involve technology in the space to answer some of the difficult questions when it comes to mental health and cognitive performance. And that really kind of took me on this journey. And been an incredible journey, ups and downs, but the work we've been able to do with people has been so rewarding, and excited about continuing to do the work.
Well, that's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing this story. I know, Christina, both of you have such amazing stories, and both of you have run your own business and started companies. And what does a day look like for you? Ups and downs, like what Tommy mentioned earlier. And what do you love most about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me just first say, Tommy, thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's clear that you are really connected to what you're solving from a personal perspective. And that's something I really relate to. As a soccer player, I saw so many of my teammates have concussions. And I think it's one of the hardest injuries because you can't see what's happening. And so I think it's really amazing the work that you are doing to help change that narrative and say, no, you can have control of this. And we work with at MyHuddle, injuries was the first pain point that we really discovered around that there needs to be more mental support for the injury side. And so we obviously have a lot of connections there. And I come at this space of trying to help provide better mental support for student athletes from my own experience as well of dealing with injuries and those setbacks. And so I think just seeing that there's that common connective tissue that we have, which it started with a problem that we both had, right? And then using our backgrounds and passions to help solve that. And that's what, motivates us through the ups and downs. I mean, a typical day, I mean, it's kind of funny because it's kind of hard to answer that question. I would say, when you are founding a company and you're in the early stages, like we are, as the CEO, you wear multiple hats. There's certain days it's, from product development to business development to marketing to doing the finance and accounting and HR. I think you have to enjoy that messiness and be able to have multiple balls juggling in the air. So I wish I could say that it's like, okay, well, Monday's my day for product, Wednesday's my day for marketing. And I tried doing that for a little bit, but it's not as, I can't be as rigid as I would like with that. It's a little bit more fluid. So yes, I think you try to plan your day, and there's standing things. We have standing team meetings, standing calls with partners, and we've also been operating. I started MyHuddle, even though it was an idea I had for some time. Started MyHuddle really at the peak of COVID, and so it really was from the outset going to be a virtual-based business. We have MyHuddle trainers who work with us across the country. And I've loved that element of it. To your question of what's the thing you love most? Yeah. I love that MyHuddle can be this platform that is connecting people across the country who have this shared vision around providing better mental support for our young athletes and being the connector for that, taking the amazing sports psychology professionals and mental health counselors that are out there and removing those barriers to access for young athletes to get access to them, removing some of those cost barriers, removing the time barriers, changing the narrative and the stigma around what it means to work on your mental health as an athlete. It's not, we all have our mental health just like we do our physical health. And so I'm really excited about being part of that broader mission and bringing together like-minded people who can help tackle this problem together.
Yeah, that's super inspiring. And also, Tommy, what about you? Both of you are family people. You have a family, you have to juggle, business and family life. So what is the day look like for you? And what do you love most about what you
do? Every day is a blur. And so when I can slow it down to be able to process it, I'll come back and tell you what it's like. Okay. So family's big, it's core of who I am. I mean, I've been married 25 years, more married life than unmarried life. And high school sweetheart since 9th grade. We were married as seniors in high school. And so we're core family at heart. And so even when we were building Nestre, and my wife is the COO with us in the company and does an incredible job, Tamika. The whole thing was, we have to take our medicine, if you will. Like we're building a mental and cognitive strength training and solutions company. We're trying to build a better world with the human in mind. And so our whole vision was, integrated into who we are, our wellness and sustainability, is paramount. We got to be who we say we are, and so we've really created kind of a flex framework to be able to do our work where we put a lot of accountability on our team and a lot of flexibility in that way as well. Being able to know where your thresholds are, knowing where to push, knowing where to find those times. And so a core part of what I do really is everyday, the everyday pieces of leadership, fundraising, heavy science. I'm speaking with brilliant scientists one day and then brilliant tech people the other day. So there's multiple languages, the language of business, if you will. And as Christina said, product development. I was just with our team earlier. We just brought on our head of, R&D, and he's thinking of all types of innovative ways to move things forward. And and that's just the everyday cycle. But for the most part, it's really continuing to cultivate and embody really kind of the ethos or the core values of what we are as a company. We want our team to feel incredible, to feel outstanding. That's the part that I really enjoy the most, is this team aspect. It's another locker room, it's another huddle. We're getting people from all across the world to come on this crazy ride with us. They are insane to join us. Hope if you're watching, I still love you, and don't go anywhere. Don't leave us. They are insane to join this crazy ride. But it's really cultivating this team family environment every single day, and trying to put our team first in what we're doing is the part that I love the most. Because I'm a big believer is if you're not cultivating culture, it's cultivating itself. One way or another, it's going to happen in that way. And so really spending a lot of focus, time, and energy in doing that in all those ways.
Right. I love how both of you talk about your teams, and working together with them, and the important roles that they play in helping you, push the business and grow further. And I feel like that also stems a lot from your background as athletes back in school, right? Because team players and knowing how you can go further together. And I was curious, can you share with us your student athlete experience and how that sort of shaped the way you view mental health for athletes today? So that's part one. My second part of my question is, and how do you think athletes today can take better care of themselves based on your experience?
I mean, I'll start. I don't know. Christina was busy. Breaking her fit, kicking so many goals and scoring. So, I can't relate to being the top scorer in that way. No, I'm just kidding. I just think that, when you have an opportunity to be on a team, it's just awesome. The experience is awesome. And seeing people perform at a high level, again, that part, because you all are rooting for this high achievement and you're trying to pursue that, and you get the utmost respect when you see someone do something that others don't have the opportunity to do. I have the utmost respect anytime I hear about people performing and doing things at a high level, because I know what it takes to get to that place. And you have that mutual value that way. And so I think that's the biggest part for me, was just watching people grind, for goals that they were trying to achieve, but also seeing the struggle. We would see, you see what's behind the closed doors when you're in your hotel room with your teammate, and the things that are going on, and the mental challenges and struggles that people are facing. But then you see them walk out of there and they have to put this certain face on, that in order to be able to function, you gotta look and feel like everything's together. And no one kind of has the conversation about, for the most part, we're bringing people from one abnormal world, putting them into another abnormal world, and then expecting us to go be normal. And not thinking about, what is the load of this environment that we're creating? And I remember at one point the World Health Organization defined mental health as having the capacity essentially to handle the normal stressors of life. And I was like, this is the World Health Organization, and you can't be more vague than that. Like, what is normal? Have we quantified what normal is? What does stressors look like, and how do we deal with it in everyday life? And so, to that second point, and we can come back to that. I'm not sure if in a lot of ways the onus is on these athletes to do better. I think it's really, we need to have the conversation on what can athletics and the environment do to better, add to the mental health of the athletes.
Right, so more of like a support structure is what you're saying, the system that's put in place to help these, which, I think Christina, has that in mind. That's why, MyHuddle is providing a sort of like a platform or an environment for an aspect of mental health for these athletes to sort of reach out to and speak to people if they feel like they need help. And for you, Christina, what has your experience been like, and how has that shaped how you view mental health for athletes today? And any advice?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, first off, I would not be who I am or where I am without having team sports. And so much of what I've learned about myself as a leader, as a person, my own confidence has come through playing team sports and through my teammates. And so I think in some ways that's everything. It's, who you're around and how they make you better and what you get to learn from one another. So when I think about team, and very much, MyHuddle is inspired by giving everyone a huddle to craft their game plan for success. And that's what inspired the name, and being able to help athletes find that support from one another on the mental side. And so that's why we have this model, bringing people together in huddles to connect with one another, to know that they're not alone in what they're facing.
Yeah.
And, we know from the NCAA has done surveys every year that show student athletes, 1 in 3 report feeling extremely overwhelmed, right? And that's overwhelmed from the pressures of academics, athletics, pressures they put on themselves from coaches, from parents, from teammates. I mean, we are in a world where all of us experience so much pressure. And I think that's really highlighted when you are a competitive athlete trying to achieve constantly.
Yeah.
And so I think that sports can be an amazing conduit for helping you find that huddle that you're in and get, work on your mental skills proactively. You don't have to wait for a crisis moment. So let's make the mental training part of the way that we also would treat any other muscle, which means you have to proactively build that foundation and strengthen it ahead of time, right? And that's not wait. So I think it's shifting a lot of the conversation around what mental health even means. And it's been very exciting to see that there is, first of all, there's recognition now that it's important, but I think that still we're in a world where when you say mental health, people immediately think something bad. And I want to try to shift that narrative and say, it's just like our physical health. There's a spectrum of it. And so to your second question around, your second question was, and then what's a lesson that I would impart to?
Yeah, like how can like athletes take better care of themselves? Any advice on that based on your experience?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, one of my key challenges as an athlete, and it probably was, I think injuries played a lot into that, was just dealing with my self-confidence. And sometimes it was my own self-talk and self-doubt that held me back. So, I know you read my bio, but what it doesn't say there is, freshman and sophomore year of college, I scored, I think, a total of 1 goal. And that's pretty bad as a forward. And our team actually was the bottom of the Ivy League. And the amazing journey for me was seeing that we flipped it, that we turned it around. And that did not happen because we were the most talented team. That happened because of how we bonded together and how we believed in one another that we could achieve. And so we did end up winning the league junior and senior year. And it was through the power of what we did off the field. It was what we said to each other. It was the, going that extra mile, putting in that extra training. And I would say, I guess the message I would impart to younger athletes who may be tuning in or thinking about this is, I think there's so much about what we're often harder on ourselves than we are to our teammates. And I think a lot about the talk track that we have in our head can hold us back. And the good news is that this is actually something you can actively work on. It is a skill, but it takes work. And it's something I'm still working on, right? I have those doubts of, man, oh, I'm sucking at this, or, oh, I'm not, I'm going to do a terrible job. And but as I've learned from our amazing sports psych coaches and mental health professionals that I get to work with, is that it is a skill that you can actively work on. And I think the younger that we start working on that and turning negative statements into positive ones and learning little tactics that help us get outside of our own head, I
Yeah.
think that it can really help us reach our full potential.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to add,
Mhm.
Christina said something I think was really important, you know, just the stressors we get too, you know, like I remember, you know, talking to a group of, you know, athletic directors and this conversation of what does a stressed athlete look like?
Right.
You know, and really the answer was they look like an athlete. Like the stress has been so normalized in sports, and but it's not a normal. There's you know, it's an abnormal exposure from a mental and cognitive load. But
Right.
we're saying because it's so pervasive, then i.e. then it is normal and should just be accepted. And it's a part of what I believe is a huge part of the challenge, in how we shift this narrative, you know, and so, you know, I think that's, you know, one of the things I would really tell, you know, athletes is to put a priority on increasing your mental and cognitive strength. You know, focus on it from a wellness and a performance perspective. Everything you do comes through the mind and the brain. Whatever you desire to do, there's something the mind and the brain is required to do. You know, and so if you start at the neck up, you know, it can really help you have a, you know, a better opportunity to be able to be successful and handle the abnormal challenges you face.
And I think also to your point, like the media has also helped, you know, build that narrative or sort of highlight that, you know, a lot of these top athletes, these younger top athletes are coming up saying that, you know, they're facing a lot of pressures and a lot of stress. And I think it also helps, to your point, normalize that stress a little bit so it doesn't feel like it's something bad, like what Christina says. And we just had like a question come in from one of like the attendees, and they were curious to find out your view on what are some ways that athletes can become more mindful during these stressful situations.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. And I will actually take a playbook out of a training that we did just yesterday with a group of soccer players who had a very similar question around, well, we have a big game coming up. What do we do? It's obviously going to be stressful. And I think the first thing that there is recognize, you know, where are you on that stress curve? I love what Tommy shared about, you know, when we say stress, what do we mean? And actually there's, you know, a curve, I'm going to do it with my finger, like that of like, where's the optimal stress level? And it's actually right in the middle. So you might, some players, like this was actually a little bit more my case. I fell on one, I had too low stress. I needed tactics that would actually help me get ramped up, you know, listening to pump up jams and things like that to move me closer to here on the stress curve. Other people are overly stressed. You know, you got the butterflies in your stomach, you feel jittery. And so you might need things that actually help calm you down. So some common tactics that our sports psych coaches will work with young athletes on, you know, there's breathing and there's specific ways of breathing to lower your heart rate and bring that more in control. There's music can be an amazing thing, or there's even tactics like little cues that you can do, trigger words. Like let's say you mess up on a play. For soccer, I would always bend down and fix my shin guards. Something, just a quick behavior to take me out of thinking about what happened in the past and be mindful and present in the moment of, okay, let me just focus on the next thing. So what I've learned, and you know, is from bringing together experts in this, is that actually there's so many different tools and strategies that you can use to deal with stress, but it's about finding the ones that work for you and actually figuring how to put those into practice. So there's things that are about, you know, some people do better with auditory learning and listening to something. Other people, it's the words that they say to themselves. Other people, it's visual cues, you know, oh, you know, I need to quickly spot three things red, and then that will bring me back into the present moment. So I would say first recognize where you are on that stress curve, and then figuring out the tactics that you need to either reduce your stress level or increase your stress level that work for you. I hope that helps.
No, I find it really useful. I never thought about things like that. For me, it's just try to breathe deeply and like calm myself down. But very good tangible points or actionable, things that you can sort of do. Tommy, sorry.
No. I think it's great. I think it's a great question. Also, too, it's interesting when we work with elite athletes. We talk about it from a kind of a neuroscience, behavioral science place, and we don't think about it a lot this way. Is that the higher the stress level gets, the more we get into subconscious auto retrieval. And it becomes less conscious, rational thinking in the moment, and more built-in auto retrieval responses. And so it's funny, you talk to sometimes an athlete, they'll see themselves on a video or film and go, man, that was incredible. How'd you do that? And they're like, I don't know, it just happened. And then I scored a touchdown. Or, they're like, what were you thinking? Like, I tell you something, I'll be making it up because I wasn't thinking.
Right.
And so, and that's a built-in survival mechanism where, stress situations increase. The last thing you want to be doing is spending resources trying to contemplate, is this something or is this not something, or should I, right? So understanding that as we train individuals to do is, we really put a lot of premium on the learning outside of the environment to build the templates so your auto retrievals can kick in when the stressors take place. And so we really begin to kind of give these two frames of learning and performance in that process. And usually when you don't have a lot of templates, when stress hits, it creates the inhibition, in those moments. And so a part of this is, especially if someone's built that way, is to spend time outside of the stress environment where the mind and the brain can learn naturally, and allow it to download as much of that experience. So when you get in those moments, you can trust in your training, you can trust in those built-in templates that they'll kick in when they need to.
Right. So that's what you mean by auto retrieval, like the learning beforehand that like the body or the mind just sort of reacts because it's learned this sort of how to manage that stress. And so it just automatically retrieves that and deals with it.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about when we first started, like people talk about having autonomous driving vehicles, and I say we have autonomous driving vehicles called people. We don't consciously drive, and so, but if you think about when you start driving, all of the stuff, the processing and all of the stressors, because it's so novel and you don't have templates and you see everything, and as you continue to do it and those templates begin to be built, stress levels come down because you have auto retrievals built into place, which allows you to be more conscious about other things in the moment. And so I think those are, and you'll see it with the more elite athletes, the difference makings a lot is they have tremendous auto retrieval for most situations they're in that doesn't inhibit them when the stressors are there. So it's a great thing to focus on when you're outside of the moment before bullets are flying, to put as many tools in your tool shed.
Like right now, when I think of like elite, like top female athletes or young female athletes, I think of like Simone Biles or Naomi Osaka. And recently she sort of mentioned, it's okay not to be okay, because two of them have come out as strong advocates for like mental health, right? And I'm grateful that they are shining a light on it, at least letting the world know that if they're a top elite athlete and they too face like stress and pressure and they have anxiety, I think it helps like normal people or even like college athletes or know that they're not alone. And what's your take on like it's okay not to be okay, right? I know Naomi Osaka said that in like a Time magazine article that she wrote, but it's also what's okay, right? And so, I was just wondering whether both of you have any sort of like views on it or opinions.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's honestly, language is a huge pet peeve of mine because language creates meaning shape behaviors, and so I'm a stickler on language. I think what's attempted to be said is absolutely accurate. Is we need to have the place and space to say we're not okay.
Yeah.
On the surface, that the language doesn't necessarily say that, where it's saying it's okay to not be okay, but that's not really how the brain works, right? And so, and I think, we got to be mindful of the language we use, but secondly, I think people are still trying to find answers to really what I believe. What in Nestre, what we're trying to say is, what if the mind and the brain isn't inherently flawed? What if we started with that premise? What if the mind and the brain isn't broken? What if in fact it's doing exactly what it was built to do and operating at a high level? What it's telling us is the problem isn't the person. There's a problem with the experience. And so for us to be able to turn our attention, because it's difficult because individuals start, for me to embrace this, I have to accept that, there's this disorder or there's this brokenness about, and dissonance doesn't allow the brain to be broken and elite at the same time. And so although the conversation is, we're trying to normalize the conversation.
Yeah.
I still think we're still some steps away from being able to fully go, know that we're not broken. In fact, we're processing the experience to tell us something is broken in our experiences that need our attention, or we need to be able to change, either to lighten the load or strengthen the lift. But for people to be able to embrace that this is everybody, like literally everybody. The science is saying everybody deals with mental and cognitive load, and we're building an abnormal world that is not conducive to the human being. And so for us to be able to normalize that at the everyday person level is really where we're trying to move this thing forward to. And as Christina mentioned, that, strength training, mental and cognitive strength training should be and will be, the primary fitness of the future, because it starts there.
Yeah, I think I agree on both points, right? First, it's, we have to be proactive rather than reactive, because a lot of times right now, mental health is a lot of reactive. Like, I have a problem, what can I do? And so, Christina's point is, let me sort of preempt that, give myself skills so that when I do have that problem,
right,
I know how to do it. And to your point of words are powerful, and they can affect people. And so we sort of need to like work on the narrative and change the way people view, mental health. I have a question for you. So moving back to sort of, sports and technology, what advice would you give your younger self, right? If you were eager to build a career in this industry, like looking back?
Yeah, I will hop in. I just have to say something about the it's okay not to be okay statement. I think we want to look at that statement in the context of where we are and where we've been as a society around sports culture. Yeah. It's such a powerful statement because for so long, athletes have had to just suck it up, right? Grind it out, not say how you're actually feeling. And so it's actually, it's in some ways, if you think about it, like, it's okay not to be okay. Like, why is that such a big deal? It's a big deal because we've been in this world where you can't acknowledge it. So I think it is a really powerful statement. And then I also think that there is just sometimes such power in sitting with someone in their emotions and just being with them before even trying to get to problem solving. The power of just sitting with someone with their feelings. And so the fact that celebrity athletes are coming out and saying these statements, I think it opens the door for younger athletes to know that. But I don't want, I hope we don't just stop there.
Right.
Let's not just sit and not being okay. Let's then move the next thing, like let's take action. But we're not there yet. And that's part of the mission that MyHuddle has, is to change that and actually make resources and support accessible. And again, that more proactive training. But I think for right now, I think that statement was extremely powerful. And I'm glad that it is now out there in the ether so that young athletes can recognize that they might be feeling certain ways too, and that they don't have to necessarily hide that. And so advice to younger self on how to get into sports tech.
Yes.
So my number one advice is, if you are interested, start networking. And I actually hate the term networking because I think it ends up sounding very transactional and like this tit for tat. And
Right.
actually, I want to reframe it into information gathering and building relationships.
Right.
Tommy and I both talked about the power of a team and who we work with. And so start having conversations with people who are in this space and doing interesting things, and come at it from approach of, you just want to learn from them. And, I think all of us love giving back and love connecting with the next generation who will be working to tackle these problems. And so know that you can start building your network whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's, meeting up for coffee chats with people, whether that's forming a group, a student group at your school with students who want to also come and talk about these conversations. I think that's the best thing you can do, because you'll learn through that and you'll be exposed to new ideas and innovations through connecting with others.
Thank you for that. Tommy, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. First I thought that's pretty, awesome. I wonder how old you really think I am, that I got to talk to my younger self. What are you saying, Don? So what I would tell my 3 minutes ago self, I think that especially when we talk about sports and tech, we're in a great time now where we're seeing this emergence of the two worlds. That hadn't been the case, really early on in kind of my early growing times. That I would really say to, similar to what Christina was saying, but to not create isolations or barriers, or to limit your creativity. I think, tech in the earlier years, it was almost kind of binary, where you're an athlete or you're a techie. But if you house it under this idea of innovation, both live in those worlds. And I think probably, what I would say is really just continue to pursue innovation in incredible ideas, and it'll kind of serve as a compass, which is what it's been now. I wish I would have paid more attention in computer and tech classes early on, and as opposed to now, learning the languages late. But also just the fascinating side of how these worlds see and think differently. And so just really, just pursue innovation, and have these kind of unlimited, unrestrained ideas.
Right. Thank you both so much for your advice. And this conversation has been, so interesting and so insightful, so many takeaways on, the way we view mental health and actionable things that we can do to sort of help ourselves. And I have so many more other questions, but I'm really mindful of your time as well. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. And for everyone here, if you are interested in learning more about Dr. Shaver's Nestre app, the link is in the chat, and we'll add that in. And if you're interested in Christina's MyHuddle, we also have the link in the app. So you guys should both go check it out and see what the resources they can offer to you. And for us at WiST, if you'd like to help us change the ratio, you could join our membership at women@sportstech.com, or we are working on our content plans for next year, and we'd love to know more about what you guys are interested in, and we also have a link in the chat. And thank you both so much for your time today. I appreciate you carving out time off your busy schedules. I know Tommy's days in a blur, but hopefully this hasn't been too much of a blur for you. Thank you so much, Christina, as well, for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you to WiST. And we were honored to have a WiST fellow who I know is tuning in. Sophie, shout out to you. And so grateful for WiST for connecting us and helping us build a fantastic team. So for all you, supporting women in sports tech, I love this organization. I joke about it that my husband's like, wait, there's an organization like that? That's totally you. It's like, yes, women in sports tech. This is perfect. So I put my email in there. Feel free to connect with me, and look forward to staying connected with all of you. So thank you.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Shout out to my superhero, Mary Lou, WiST. She is beyond outstanding. And I love WiST and everything it stands for, and just even personally, the personal experience and how awesome you all have been for me personally, and for our company at Nestre. This has been outstanding, and this conversation has been great as well. And again, kudos, Christina, to all the awesome work you're doing. Nothing but great wishes on the work that you're continuing to do, because we have to move this space forward. And I think this conversation has been a great part of that.
Yeah, I see so much synergy between the both of you and all the things that you bring to the table. And to both of your point, this is just the beginning, and we all have to work really hard to shine a greater light and make sure things are more not to normalize it, and I think everyone's just doing a really great job. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Happy Friday. Thank you all for joining us as well. Goodbye. See ya. Thanks so much, Christine. I really appreciate it.